Hey everybody! James here from Mortisk Media, and we're back with some more Unreal Engine 5. This one we are going to also be using some 3D software because in today's video we're going to be looking at how to be able to create and use a flashlight within Unreal Engine. So this is creating the model within a 3D program. I'm going to be using Blender because it is free and open source. And then we're also going to be taking that model and doing a little bit of changes with it to make it into a fully functioning flashlight within Unreal Engine. And these are very simple steps. This is about as easy as you can get it. Even if you've just picked up Unreal Engine and just picked up Blender or never even touched Blender, you'll be able to do this entire video without any problem. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is open up your 3D software. So again, just for me, it's Blender. So you can use Maya, you can use 3ds. It doesn't really matter, whatever you prefer. And then the first thing you're going to want to do is decide what kind of flashlight you're going to want to make. So for me, I'm going with the more kind of cylindrical standard flashlight look. So if you're in Blender, Shift A to be able to add anything, go to Mesh, and then we're going to add in a cylinder. If you tap R while it's highlighted, and then X 90, so this is rotating it along the x-axis 90 degrees. And now we have a nice horizontal lineup rather than a vertical lineup. Now the other thing to keep in mind, especially when you're making models within Unreal or for Unreal Engine, you're going to want to keep scale in mind, and this is something very important with any 3D modeling. So one thing to keep in mind is that most flashlights are right around 3 to 7 inches long. That's kind of pretty much the standard length. Some of them can go up a lot higher. You're talking about like the mag lights and things like that. But I kind of want to keep it within a standard range. So we're going to use about 7 inches as our goal. However, if you have this highlighted and you press N on your keyboard in Blender, it'll bring up these little transform properties, and you'll see that everything right now is in meters, not inches. Now, you could do the conversion if you like, but there's an easier way to go about it. On the panel side here, you see this little kind of like teardrop looking icon here. It's the scene properties. If you click on this and then under units, you'll see unit system, metric. We're going to change that to imperial. And now we have inches and feet instead of meters. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go and along the y-axis. So we're going to go 0.7. So that'll be that, and then same thing for the x, 0.7. And now we have the start of the shape. I will say the Z is a little long as well, so we're going to scale that down in just something maybe like that. Yeah, I like how that looks. So this is just getting the starting shape and size for the flashlight handle. That's really all this is doing, right? So now we're going to start on working on creating the actual flashlight shape. So with this cylinder highlighted after it's been scaled and applied, first thing you're going to want to do is do Control and A together, and then click on all transforms under the apply. This will apply all scale and movement transforms that you've applied. It's just something to do within Unreal or do within 3D programs whenever you're doing sort of any modeling, because this little orange dot is referred to as the origin point. So this is where all the data kind of starts from, for where it tells it how to be able to move, rotate, or how to be able to bend, how to be able to work. So it's really good just to always make sure that you're applying your scale as well as your transforms. So now with this highlighted, let's go and finish off making our flashlight shape. So we're going to tab into edit mode, click on the face here. So if you 1 through 3, 1 is edge select, or I'm sorry, vertex select, 2 is edge select, and 3 is face select. So these are the keyboard shortcuts for Blender for getting access to different things. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we want to kind of give it a more outward shape. So the first thing we're going to do is with this face selected, we're going to press S, or actually no, I apologize. We're going to do E to extrude. This way it gives us this line here, so I apologize. So we're going to extrude it first, and maybe go a little bit longer, something like that. And then now we'll scale it, something like this. So whenever you're doing a scale after an extrude, it's going to go based off of where the next kind of line is. So what this allows me to do is be able to kind of fan out this without affecting the rest of the shape. So now that we have this, we're going to do another extrude. So E on your keyboard, and we'll go out to maybe like right about there. So you see now we have a basic flashlight shape, but we still have to do a couple of more things to it. So we're going to go with this face still selected. You're going to hit I on your keyboard. This is to inset the faces. And then just kind of put it at a point that feels good. This is just for the edge of the kind of the lens. And then E, and then we're going to move it back. So this way it kind of creates an opening, like so. And now we have the start of our flashlight. There's another couple things that I like to do just to add a little bit more detail. If you go to the backside face here and do I to inset again, make like a little circle on the end and then extrude it out. This kind of just gives it a little bit more of like a realistic feel. A lot of times they have like these little kind of covers on the bottom. So perfect. Now, there's one last thing that we need to do, and this is more just for looks than anything. And this is just to add a button to it. Now, the button is not going to be actually functioning. It's just that way if the player looks at it and goes, oh, hey, there's a button here. I can actually press the flashlight. When they go to press it, it's not actually going to depress. And you can set it up if you wanted to for it to depress, but I've never really found that it's much of a need. So just to kind of give you a quick rundown of what I just did is I just added in a sphere, so Shift-A, Mesh, and then I added in a little kind of UV sphere here. And then it's just scaled down in size until it's right around the proper size for the button that I want. So I'm going to scale it up. Let me kind of bring it up just a little bit more, something like that. Yeah. And then we'll go ahead and just drag it up. And this is really all 3D modeling is. It's just a series of creating shapes and putting them together until it creates the shape that you're looking for. But so now that we have the model together, we're going to join the cylinder and the sphere together after. But we have one more step, and this is just for smoothing to make it so all of these rough edges are not as prominent. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the shaft of the flashlight, and then go into our modifiers tab. So this is with the little wrench icon here. Excuse me. Then we're going to go down to the drop down for the modifiers, and we're going to click on Subdivision Surface under Generate. So we're going to click on that. As you can see, it kind of messes everything up. Don't worry. This is where we're going to do some tricks. So if you, with it highlighted, tab into Edit Mode. The first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to start adding in what are called loop cuts. And loop cuts just help control how the subdivision surface modifier works. So how you do a loop cut is over anywhere in your mesh while in edit mode, if you hit Control and R together, you get this little kind of circle around, and then you left click, and you can drag it based off of wherever you want. You can see that this loop cut is now pushing the mesh kind of left and right depending on where I push it. We want to make this go all the way to the end here, and then we're going to do the same thing, bring it all the way to the end here, and this just helps flatten out those edges. And then we're going to do the same thing on the inside here. So we're going to go to the inside of the flashlight, kind of like so, and then we're going to bring it as far back as it'll let us go, then do another one, bring it as far forward as it'll let us go, and then that's how we get that nice little inside shape. Don't worry too much about how the vertices aren't lining up here. You're not going to see this part of it by the time that you're done, so don't worry too much about that. So now we're just going to go in and keep adding in our loop cuts. We want to make sure that everything is pretty much looking exactly the way that we have it set up. So we're just going to add a loop cut, drag it to one side, add another loop cut, drag it to the other side, and just keep repeating this process until you get to the very end of your model. We do another one here, another one pushing that in just like so. Beautiful. So now, with all those loop cuts added, if I go and I just push up the viewport render, so I'm going to push this up to 3 on both, you'll see now it's a very nice, smooth flashlight. So we're going to do the same thing on this one. We're going to go ahead and we're actually just going to drag it up before we do that, just so that way we have full view of everything here. And we're going to do 3, 3, oh, that's 4. Alright, so it looks like we didn't really need to do much to that one, which is good. Sometimes it likes to be a bit of a pain and wants to fight, but there we go. Now we have our flashlight model. So we've got a nice long handle here, nice light source here, and that is all for the model. Now, Things that you're going to want to do for Unreal Engine. It's very simple, is just add in a bone and turn it into a skeletal mesh. A skeletal mesh has a lot more control within Unreal Engine, so in order to be able to ensure that you have full control with your flashlight, I like to make sure that there is a rig of some sort. So we're just going to add in one singular bone, and we're going to rotate it RX -90, so that way it's facing that way. Now with the bone highlighted as well, if you go into this little green running man icon, go down to viewport display, click on in front, this will show the bone's position even through the mesh. So this just makes it really easy to be able to tell where's, kind of what's what. And then we're going to take it, just kind of drag it back to the beginning or somewhere in the middle, somewhat like that. Make sure that it's centered, and boom. So now all we're going to do is we're going to take it, we're going to make sure that it's kind of end to end. Now, whether or not the bone is bigger than the skeleton, or bigger than the mesh, don't worry. You just want to make sure that the bone is going from end to end. You'll see why that's important in just a second. So once it's end to end, then we're going to click on the flashlight, shift click on the armature, and this is going to basically allow us to parent them together. So if we do Control and P together, you'll see that there's this, there's an armature deform group here. Then we got with empty groups, with envelope weights, and automatic weights. Just want to select automatic weights. So now if I go and click on the bone up here and go into pose mode, if I rotate this, you'll see the flashlight moves. The button doesn't move because we haven't joined the button to the flashlight yet, but that's fine because we're going to do that now as the last final step. So we're just going to go out of pose mode, back into object mode, highlight the button, highlight the flashlight, and then Control J. And now they're all one piece. And then if I go back in, do Alt H to unhide. Oops. Where'd it go? There we go. Alright, sorry. Seem to have lost the bone there for a second. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and we'll just click that for a second so we can rejoin everything. Same thing as we did before, just highlighting it, then doing Control J. Just had to go back and make sure that the armature was in there. Alright, so now that we have our bone and our flashlight, and we were able to do that in 13 minutes, so not too bad, while also doing explanations, so moving at a good pace. So now it's very, very easy what we're going to do. We're going to File, Export, FBX. Now you don't have to change too much over here. There's a couple things that we do want to change, but there's not a whole lot that we have to change. First thing we want to do is flashlight. I'll do tutorial. So just to give it a name. And then what we want to do is go down to armature. We want to uncheck add leaf bones and only deform bones. This will make it so that way it doesn't add any unnecessary bones to our model. We only want the one bone just to give us some control within our animation, or within our function of the flashlight within Unreal Engine. We're also going to uncheck bake animation because we don't have any animations with it. It's just as is. Alright, so now we have all of our things applied, so we're just going to make sure, again, we're just only making sure that we have our deform bones, and bake animation is unchecked. Then I'm going to put this on my desktop, Fport FBX. So now, if I go in and I open up Unreal Engine, so we'll go ahead and just load up into the tutorial project that we've been working out of in the previous videos. Now, while this loads up, there's a couple of things that I actually wanted to review while these go on. So, upcoming videos. There's actually some new exciting stuff that's going to be happening in the upcoming videos that are going to be coming out, I would say, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I have found some really cool ways to be able to create some really nice, intricate, detailed line traces for things such as complex combat, as well as interactions and things like that. It's a much more simplified way of getting the same results as doing something like a high level of motion warping or things like that. So I'm really excited to show this to you guys and show you guys how to be able to set it up. It's going to be a multi-part video series, so stick with me on that. I know sometimes the videos do go a little longer than initially intended, but This is all done for the purposes of giving as much information as possible for these videos. Because I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times when I'm looking through these tutorials and just looking for something very specific, the information that I'm looking for, like the very specific thing that I'm looking for, gets lost within all the other information that's going on. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm not doing that to you guys, and I'm kind of explaining things as much as possible. Alright, so now that we have our Unreal Engine loaded, we're just going to have to minimize this so I can go ahead and grab our asset. And yes, I was looking at flashlight links, so that way I could properly quote everything to you guys. Alright, so we're just going to drag and drop this into our content folder for right now. So we're just going to go content, flashlight, and we're just going to drag and drop right in there. And then this window is going to pop up. This is totally fine. This is a skeletal mesh. There is no skeleton that is associated to this within current assets, so we can leave that as none. We're going to leave import animations unchecked. We're going to leave it as convert scene. That's totally fine. I just like to double check and make sure everything is good. Perfect. So it looks like all these settings are good by default. So we're just going to click on import. Now it is going to give you a slight error. This is not something to worry too much about with what we're doing right here, right now. But when importing an FBX into Unreal Engine, it has an issue with calculating what is called the smoothing groups, which is essentially just telling it how to be able to properly displace certain things. And oh, looks like I may have not gotten the message this time. Okay. Alright, so if we go ahead and open up the skeleton here, we'll see we have our flashlight. So this is the basics of importing the model. Now we need to make it work. So what we're going to do now is in Unreal Engine, we're just going to go ahead and right click, go to blueprint class, and now we're going to create an actor class. We're just going to call this flashlight. And then we'll go ahead and open up that blueprint class. This is where we're going to start attaching some things to it. Now, one thing to note as well is that we do want to make sure, let me just fix my screens here, there we go. One thing we want to make sure is that we have everything loaded within this blueprint, because this blueprint is going to be essentially what calls all the information for the flashlight. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is add in a skeletal mesh. So I'm going to go skeletal mesh, and we're going to call it flashlight. Boom. And then, under the details panel here, under skeletal mesh, we're going to scroll down, and flashlight. Boom. So you can see, now we have our flashlight loaded in. We've got a good start to everything here. But we still, we don't have any light emission. We don't have anything kind of going on. It's not very interesting. So we need to, keep doing some more things to it. The first thing that we're going to want to do is add a cylinder. We're going to add it, and we're going to leave it as is for right now. We're not going to touch it, because now what we want to do is actually go into the skeleton for the flashlight, and this is why we wanted to make sure to make that bone. Because now off of this bone, we're going to go right-click on it and add a socket. And we'll just call this bulb socket. Boom. Alright, then we'll take it, drag it up to right about here where the bulb for the light source is going to be. And then we'll click on save, go back to the flashlight. Now we'll take the cylinder. Now under sockets and parent socket, it should already have this here. So if you click on this little option here, you should see these, and then we're going to click on bulb socket. And then we'll go ahead and just kind of redo the location transform. Sometimes things on this get a little messed up, so I just got to check something here. I've had a couple of times where it just gets like overtly big. So I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't what was happening here. And it looks like it just got lost. Okay, that's totally fine. So we're going to scale this up to a scale. Make sure to lock the scale whenever you're doing this, because otherwise it's going to lose its roundness. So we're just going to do a scale by 150. And that didn't work either. So our cylinder has been lost, people. That's interesting. Let's just try going way out. Maybe it got like absurdly big. Nope. Scale of 1. Ah, there it is. Yep. So it did get absurdly big. So this does happen sometimes. So just keep in mind, if you don't see it, this is why. So we're going to go 0.032. It's generally a good number I've found to at least start with. Looks like we're going to have to go smaller than that, 0.001, just to kind of get it out of my way. Perfect. Okay, so now that we actually have some movement here, we got it in position where we want it. I'm just going to slow down my movement here. Alright, so now that we have our cylinder placed in the middle with our socket, we're just going to go ahead and rotate it. I'm just going to turn on the rotation snapping so that way I can keep it at a cool 90 degrees. Just like so. And now we're going to start playing around with the scale to be able to make it fit. So I'm going to go 0.0015. That actually might work. Let's see. Let's bring it back a little bit, because this is essentially just going to be kind of the bulb lens. That's all this is going to be. This isn't going to be the actual source of the light. This isn't going to be anything other than just kind of like a visual effect, because the light source is going to come from something else. But that looks good. I like that. I think that fits in nicely. So now we've got the start of our flashlight, and we have a spot to be able to start emitting light to. So we have one more thing that we have to do, which is add in the actual light source that would be used within the game. So this is where we're just going to type in light, and then we're going to click on spotlight. And then we'll take the spotlight, we'll drag it up, rotate it, like so. Then, whoa. And we'll bring it up, and just kind of align it so that way it looks like it's, lined up properly with the flashlight. It's actually emitting light the way that a flashlight normally would. A lot of times too, I will bring these in just a little bit, something like that. And then messing around with the cone angles also can be really helpful. I like to kind of squeeze these down just a little bit, as well as turn up the intensity. I find the default intensity to be a little low, but that could just be me. Alright, so now we have kind of the start of our flashlight. And realistically, we could load this in, and it would, for the most part, work. And I'll show you guys here right now. So if we go compile and save, minimize, and then we drag in the blueprint that we just made, you'll see it emits light. Now, it does appear to be a little bit bigger than what it should be. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just kind of rotate my skylight a little bit so that way we can get a little bit better of an idea of how this is working. Here we go, directional light. This is a cool way to be able to make different cycles too. You guys just take your directional light and rotate it, and you can create these type of cool scene looks. But as you can see here, we have the fully functioning flashlight. I can rotate it. The light goes with the rotation. So pretty cool. There's a couple things that you can do as well just to kind of make this a little bit better. So you can do things such as, like, if you look right now, if you stand in front of it, that circle that we put in there doesn't really look like it's actually a bulb. It's not emitting anything. So let's fix that really quickly with the last final touch that we're going to do here. So in any open spot within your content browser, just right click, and we're going to create a new material. And we're going to call this bulb material. Alright, and then open that up really quickly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to right click, and we're going to type in constant. And then get the constant 3 vector. Okay? And this is going to allow us to be able to select our color. So we're going to take this, and I kind of like to use something that's kind of like a mixture of like a warmish, coolish color. So first things first, we'll make sure that's white. Bring that down into something like that. I kind of like that color. So just whatever you want to do. I like to use warm lights when it comes to flashlights. I feel like it kind of sits better. And then just plug that into the base color of your kind of shader here. And it'll give this. And I know, not that great. We're going to add another thing here. So we're going to right click again. We're going to type in constant. And this time we're just going to click this one, constant. This is just a numerical value to allow us to control a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to, on this value here, we're going to set it to about a value of 25. That's a value that I found to be pretty good. But you can play with this number to increase or decrease the strength, because if we go and plug this in, once it compiles, it might just take a moment. Now we have some really nice kind of emission happening from that source. And this value here from the constant is what's controlling that. Meanwhile, the color is being controlled by this. So I could actually maybe raise that yellow up a little bit to kind of combat some of the illumination. This way to give more of like a yellowish hue to what I'm doing here. Yeah, I like that. I think that looks good. So we'll go ahead and save that. And once it's saved, we're just going to go back to our flashlight. So just give this a minute. Maybe. I will say emissive materials definitely take a lot longer to load, so just bear that in mind. Alright, so now we're going to go back to our flashlight, go to our cylinder that we placed within the flashlight, and go to the materials tab. And now we'll see this bulb material. We'll just select that. And now you'll see it kind of has like an emission like it has a light bulb in there. So if we compile, save, minimize, there we go. So I can go and click on play here. And you'll see that it's got the full light source. And it even has a little bit of an emission from the actual light. So I will say the flashlight did come out a little bit longer. I think that Unreal Engine scale is possibly a little bit different than the way that Blender correlates the information. This is something I have an issue with, kind of hit or miss. There's been times where I have it directly on and it loads in exactly the way it's supposed to be. And then there's other times where it definitely is off scale a little bit. So that could be just something I'm missing, but it's easy enough to rescale. Usually what I'll do in these moments is if I know it's way too big. Up here again, we have the snapping option, so we're going to go to the snapping for the rotations, or for the scale, and then turn it down to its lowest value of 0.03125. Because then from there, you can kind of just do clicks, like, well, maybe turn it up to 0.0625. Because the thing is you just basically want to kind of like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this way you've got the full value of everything that's happening going on, and you're keeping your roundness. So these scales, these locking scales, can be really good for just keeping the scale all the way around. I mean, obviously you can do that through here as well, just locking this in place and kind of keeping it at an even value. But I have found that sometimes when you do and play around with these values, it for some reason doesn't always correlate the same way. So I like to do it manually with the clicks, just keeps it simple. But anyways, so the last thing, if you guys wanted to add a texture to the flashlight, you can add any texture you want, and that's one of the reasons why we make the bulb separated from the flashlight itself, because we can easily now, if we just go to the flashlight, I can select on any material I want. So we'll go ahead and just click on, I don't know what looks good. Let's see. So we'll click on, trying to find like a metallic material, something that would actually be used on here. Here, we'll just use this black material. I like that one. So we'll give it a minute to load. It's got a few different shaders on it. I don't know if this is going to look proper just because of the fact that it is a handgun material, but oh yeah, no, that actually looks really nice. Nice kind of sleek black material. But yeah, so now as you can see here, we've got the bulb, we've got the sleek black, it's got its button, it's got its kind of like little divot at the end there, an illuminated bulb, and fully functioning light source. So I know this video went a little bit over, but I really hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was informative. If you guys have any issues with anything going on here, if you guys have any issues with Blender and how to be able to import, any FBX issues, please let me know in the comments or message me directly. I'm always happy to help and do anything that you guys need to be able to make it so that way you guys are able to do exactly what we're doing in the video today. If you guys have any suggestions for any videos or anything that you'd like to see, always happy to put out some videos based off of suggestions. So yeah, just hit me up, and I hope you guys, as always, stay animated.